On this channel, we mostly talk about firearms, but it is so impossible sometimes to avoid politics when one side of the aisle is consistently trying to take away your Second Amendment right and strip away our right to keep and bear arms. And now we have a new threat to this fight, Kamala Harris. Let's get to it. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you didn't already know, my name's Jay Casa, and I'm a red-blooded American patriot living behind enemy lines, some would say, here in the state of New Jersey, where we have to consistently and constantly protect and defend and fight for our Second Amendment rights and the rights to keep and bear arms and defend ourselves, our family, and our property. And if that interests you, definitely consider subscribing down below and hit that notification bell. That way you can stay up to date for my weekly videos just like this one. And also hit that like button down below if you get any value out of this video. Now, since the Democrat Party has finally ceded the fact that the weekend at Bernie presidency is finally over, we now have Kamala Harris to deal with. So we have to go over what a potential Kamala Harris presidency would look like to our Second Amendment rights. Spoiler alert, it's not so pretty. And all it took was one campaign rally for her to start spouting off some anti-Second Amendment nonsense.
We who believe that every person in our nation who should have the freedom to live safe from the terror of gun violence will finally pass red flag laws, universal background checks, and an assault weapons ban.
So let's go over what Kamala is proposing here. 1. Red flag laws. Red flag laws are extremely invasive to your privacy and violate the 2nd, 4th, and 5th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. They would allow a family member or a spouse or a friend to essentially strip away your Second Amendment right and freedom, whether true or not. This opens up a can of worms of epic proportions because of one very common but very divisive legal process, and that's called divorce. We all have stories of friends or family or even ourselves who've gone through a very nasty and bitter divorce where both sides lie to each other and obviously make their attorneys very rich in the process. Well, would you want your Second Amendment right left up to the whims of your spouse who is probably lying about you? I didn't think so. 2. Universal background checks. Now, there are many issues with universal background checks, but the number one issue of a universal background check is the fact that you would need to start a national gun registry. Not only is a national gun registry currently illegal based on federal law, but you could look throughout history in other nations to see that a registry of firearms in a country ultimately leads to confiscation. And lastly, that good old assault weapons ban. God forbid we as citizens have a rifle that's capable of now, none of this should be any surprise at all because Kamala Harris has been consistently extremely anti-2A. She's actually called for mandatory buybacks back in 2019 and 2020 when she originally ran for president and got 0 delegates. So what is a mandatory buyback? Well, it's a little bit nicer way to say gun confiscation door to door. And what happens if you don't comply? Well, you could see her record on many instances where she takes the force and might of the state in order to impose her agenda and to get her way. For instance, she threatened to prosecute parents for truancy and then laughed about it like she usually does. So you can connect the dots here and see where this would lead to. Door-to-door gun confiscation that could get ugly fast. You see, right off the bat, her definition of freedom I find to be flawed. And it's the total opposite of the type of freedom that the founders were espousing for when they wrote the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and started this great country. We are a country started and created by men with rifles. That's a fact. And they used those rifles to fight off what they saw as a tyrannical state, a tyrannical government. How do we know that this is the definition of freedom and more specifically liberty that the founders liked? Well, they put it in the Constitution. It's the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I have a newsflash for all of my liberal gun owners out there who may have just bought a gun in the last few years. The Second Amendment is not for hunting, my friends. It's to give us the freedom and the liberty to fight off a tyrannical government or any threat at all, whether it's an individual or a tyrannical state. That may sound crazy, but is it really? We were just talking about civil war a week and a half ago. History is full of tyrants in different nations disarming their citizens and then coming down with a complete totalitarian regime because the citizens had no way to fight it off and defend themselves. Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, and Mao's China. And tens of millions of people lost their lives because of it, totally defenseless and slaughtered. You see, freedom is not inherently safe. Because in theory, the more freedom we have as individuals, the more likely it would be that another individual threatens your safety. But that's the price we pay for our freedom and liberty, and there is a balance because you then have the freedom and the liberty to defend yourself from that threat. Now, although that chance will be fairly small in comparison and what we're getting as the trade-off, but you know what chance is not fairly small? If you give away all of your weapons to the state and you are left with a defenseless and unarmed public, you will have a totalitarian government and a tyrannical regime on top of you, controlling your lives. And as Benjamin Franklin once said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you will love my custom politics-related playlist. I'll put a link in the description box down below as well as up in the corner here. Definitely check that out. But let me know in the comments what you think about Kamala Harris and the potential presidency that we could be seeing. She's their nominee, and she is something that we have to deal with, and we have to fight for our Second Amendment rights going forward no matter where you are in this country. Let me know in the comment section, and I will see you next time.